I'm Ariana from Lloyd Collective, and this is our monthly fundraising workshop. So we do these once a month, and it's a way to learn about something generally that's related to business, therapy, and ideally liberation or anti-racism work. These are always free, and we pause in the middle for voluntary collective donations. My organization matches the donations. And then the second, so Monica is going to share the first half and talk to us about how to avoid writing a generic therapy website, which I'm really excited about, because if you've ever looked at therapy websites or like profile directories, they're super, super similar. And that's not to put anyone down, but it is to say, let's figure out where the authenticity is and connect with that more. So Monica's going to share that the first half. We're pausing in the middle for donations to the Trevor Project. And then the second half, I'm going to take some of what Monica shared and workshop it with you. So if a few of you are interested in sharing your ideas, your direct application of what Monica shares, if you're willing to share that with the group, then we'll kind of refine those all together. So ideally, a few of you will walk out of this with like at least a blurb or something that you're like, okay, this is what I want on my homepage, or these are the first 3 lines I want on my like therapy den listing, and that you can feel confident about it. So Monica's going to share, and then we'll save questions for the middle of the session. So just make a note if you have questions. All right. And Monica, I want to say thanks to Monica for joining. Generally, Monica and Amalia did one of these in September. They can charge for these, and in lieu of charging, they're donating their time in order to support whatever organization they've chosen. So I really appreciate you doing that. All right, Monica, it's all you.
All right, I am going to share my screen, so bear with me for a second. Okay, I'm the host now. All right. Can everybody see that? Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, well, as Ariana said, I'm Monica Kovach of FullSpaceCreative.com. I design Squarespace templates for therapists. I used to be a therapist myself, specifically art therapist, but transitioned into web design and really passionate about that. So let's get into it today. So what we're going to cover just really quickly, how to translate what you do into non-therapy speak. It's like one of the biggest hurdles therapists have to get over, and I did as well. How to organize your copy on your website, and then how to avoid sounding generic. I love what you said, Ariana, just about like finding where the authenticity is. That's, I hope, what you all get from today. Okay, so let's start with translating what you do. So usually when therapists approach their website copy, they're thinking, how do I write about myself, right? That's what I thought when I wrote my first website. And that's what, a lot of my clients and customers think as well. And so when you're in that perspective, you're kind of thinking like, how do I sell myself? What do I need to say about myself? And that's where we can get into traps of like writing our website like we write our resumes and our cover letters and things like that. And that's not the stuff that connects on like a client level. From a client perspective, they're not sure what those credentials mean. They're not sure what your experience means. So it kind of like goes over a lot of people's heads. So the perspective shift is, when therapists should be asking is, what do my potential clients need to know? So the perspective shift is like asking from like your point of view versus asking from your potential client's point of view, if that makes sense. So it's like stepping into their shoes. That's like step number one. Because I feel like it's really hard to write effective copy if you are just in that like kind of self perspective of what do I write about myself? You know what I mean? It's about putting yourself in your potential client's shoes. So then speaking of potential clients, it's like, how do I know which potential client to like step into their shoes, right? So the second point here, it's always easier to speak to one person than trying to speak to everyone. And I know like it's so logical on a website to try to speak to everybody because a lot of people see our websites, we're like gaining traffic from social media, from Google, whatever. And there are going to be a lot of people looking at your website. But again, it's about a perspective shift of not trying to speak to everyone. Because as a reader of a website, we can feel when we're not being spoken to, if that makes sense. Like we can tell if someone is trying to speak to everyone versus speaking directly to us. Like if anyone has ever read a website where it's like you're reading through it and you're like, are they in my brain? Like, do they know, how do they know what I'm thinking? Like I literally said that thing yesterday. So that's what we want your potential clients to say, to feel, and to think when they're reading your website. So the way to do this is to create an ideal client. And you guys, you may have heard of this term before. It's kind of like a marketing term. Basically, an ideal client is sort of like a character that represents your most aligned client. So that type of person that your skills, knowledge, and experience really aligns with. And then it's just like creating this character so that you can then imagine yourself in their shoes. So it's really, an ideal client is just like a marketing exercise for you. It's not to say that like you can only work with that type of client or anything like that. It's really just a tool for you. So then the next thing here is to assume that your website visitors have never seen or searched for a therapist. This is a big one, I think, because as therapists, we're really accustomed to using like jargony words and like that, we together understand, but someone who's never seen a therapist might not understand. And when too many of those words are used on a website, again, it can kind of like go over people's heads and kind of results in missed connection, missed opportunity. So the way to avoid that is just to connect with your ideal client's experience. So first of all, empathize. Like you all are expert empathizers. You already know how to do that. Empathize on your website. Like I've said this before, like if all you do on your website in your copy is empathize, like it'll be heads and shoulders above the rest, like that's really what it's about. And then beyond that, reflect, use those reflective statements that you use in session on your website. And then describe the transformation that you provide. And this one can be tough for some therapists. I know it was really tough for me because from my perspective, I was like, I'm not trying to change anybody. I'm not, I'm wanting my clients to find their answers, right? I'm not trying to force anything, but there is a transformation happening in therapy. And it's just about kind of like identifying what that is for you and identifying the sort of transformation that your ideal client wants. So whether it's like, I want to get better sleep, I want to have more trusting relationships. Like if you can help them get there, then that's what you kind of have to describe on your website. So there was a lot in that first slide, but I'm going to give you an example just to bring it to like more tangible terms. So just in this like one sentence, I'm going to describe a before and after, really describing like kind of the jargony speak and all of that. So before, I specialize in IFS and EMDR, helping people process and integrate traumatic experiences. So all of us here know what that means, but a lot of people searching for a therapist would have no idea what this means. And this is what I see on a lot of therapy websites, as well as directory profiles, things like this that make sense to fellow therapists, but not to clients, potential clients who don't have experience in therapy or as a therapist. So then the after, taking the jargony speak out of it, really connecting with the client's experience, the result would be, and this is just one example, I specialize in IFS and EMDR. These methods help us make sense of intense, disruptive experiences in a gentle way so that you can think clearly, sleep better, and improve your most important relationships. So I underlined IFS and EMDR just because ideally those would be like hyperlinks to more extensive pages that describe exactly what those things are. But you see how the after statement is more accessible. It's like in more layman's terms, and it really focuses on tangible results, like the results that, well, and also like kind of points to the issues that might be bringing this person to therapy in the first place. So maybe like foggy brain, trouble sleeping, relationship problems, things like that. So hopefully that illustrated some of that difference there. So let's talk about organizing your copy. This is a big one too. I get a lot of questions about this. So what I would say is just kind of like take your visitors on a journey on each page, like from top to bottom. And this structure here that I laid out is best used on like a home page or a service page. And by service page, I mean like, your individual counseling page or your couples counseling page. So let me go into each of these items here. So you're going to start with who, what, and where. So you're going to immediately at the top of the page describe what the service is, like what you provide, who it's for, and where it takes place. So right off the bat, this is just a really clear introduction to what the page is about. But it's also a really connective thing. If you're really clear about, what the page is about, what you're offering, particularly who it's for, then the reader, if they're a member of that group of people, can be like, oh, okay, they're talking to me. Like that's like a connecting. This is the opportunity to really connect with your visitors on your website. The section below that, you're going to identify a problem, basically what is causing your ideal client to seek therapy. So the thing that I put in bold text here is in their words. Is a big thing. You want to describe what's bringing the person to therapy in their words. Don't describe like the underlying issue or what you think might be going on. Use their words, and literally, like you can literally look back at like your existing clients' intake paperwork and see like any sort of like commonalities of like what are people saying is bringing them to therapy. That's really going to help in terms of your website copy. Next, you want to empathize and connect, like in the section below. So you want to convey that you understand and why you understand. And don't just say, I understand. You have to describe and explain why you understand so that that genuineness and that authenticity comes across. So there's likely a reason that you specialize in what you specialize in, right? And so this is your opportunity to kind of share a bit of that reason. And so in this section as well, you can introduce yourself and share a bit about, your personal connection to the struggle or problem or, whatever term you want to use. You don't have to like overshare here. You don't have to say a ton about your like personal life experience, but that little bit of personal connection does go a long way. So whether it's, you've personally struggled with this, or, you've worked with a lot of clients with this particular struggle, this is what you want to describe in this section so that the people reading can know that, okay, this might be a therapist worth reaching out to. Under that, you'll want to provide a solution. So basically describe how you help. So what I would say in this section is simplicity is key, So if someone's reading down your page and they're like, they're invested, they're like, okay, I'm getting the sense that this therapist might be able to help, might understand my experience. Their next question is going to be, okay, but how? Like, how does this work? Using sleep as an example, like you're saying that you can help me get better sleep. I don't know how that works. Like, how would going to therapy help me get better sleep? And so in this section, you can kind of describe a little bit about like how it works. And then also describe, the process of working with you as kind of step by step. So like, first step is reaching out for a consultation. The next step is, we're going to meet for however long, and we're going to get to know each other. And then what's, the following step. So it's just providing some structure under the, trust building that you did at the, above sections. And then the last section is a call to action. So it's pretty simple. Include a book now or like request appointment button, really just giving people a clear doorway to book with you. That section can be pretty simple, straightforward, but I always say the easier you can make the booking process, the better. And then last thing here, how to avoid sounding generic. Bless you. Don't copy anyone. Like the biggest thing that causes generic sounding therapy websites or any website is people copying each other, because and the impulse to copy another therapist website is probably out of like, I'm not sure what to put here. I don't know what to write. I don't know how to write. Let me see how somebody else is doing it. But what happens is we just end up getting a lot of therapy websites that sound the same, that look the same. So don't copy anybody. And then the next point, kind of building off of that, avoid stock copy or like done for you copy that doesn't involve your input. So, if you're working with a copywriter or someone, that's fine, but it's you just want it to sound like you don't want it to sound like anybody else, because people are eventually going to meet you in the therapy room or over, teletherapy, and you want there to be some continuity there. So you want your website to sound like you. And then don't write "welcome to my website" anywhere on your website. This is like the thing that I see all over directory profiles, all over therapy websites. And it's like the one thing that really makes all therapy websites sound the same. And if that's the first thing people are seeing every time they click on a therapy website, like it loses all meaning. Like I know that it comes from a genuine place. Like you really just want to welcome people to your website. But again, it's thinking about the client's experience, the therapy seeker's experience. They're seeing that over and over and over again. And that's just like, from a therapy seeker's perspective, it's like, how do I tell any of these people apart? Like, how do I know who's going to actually be able to help me if they're all just saying, "welcome to my website," So then use words and phrases that are unique to you. So we all have like unique ways of communicating, speaking. We all have those like phrases that like are classically us. So use those on your website. Again, the more that you can make it sound like you, the better. And then don't worry about being different or going against the norms. That's the point. I think a lot of us therapists are kind of afraid of going against the norms and like kind of being different. But especially in marketing, which copywriting is a part of, that's the point. Like you want to be different, like you want to stand out again from the crowd, so that again, it's easier for therapy seekers to identify the right therapist for them. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind if you ever have any like discomfort come up around like being different or going against norms or anything like that. Like just know that you're helping the people who need help by like being different and being yourself. So the last thing here is like my favorite really easy trick is to use contractions to avoid sounding clinical or robotic. So just like example, like you're rather than you are. So like even if you're writing your copy, and even if you would say in session or in person with someone, you are, just try using a contraction instead, because it just sounds more conversational. It sounds more human, sounds warmer than you are. So that's just like a little copywriting trick for you. But yeah, that is, pretty sure that's the last slide. Yep, that's what I have for you. So any questions?
Thanks so much for sharing so far, Monica. Do you want to put us on gallery? And then do you mind making me the host again?
Yes. Share.
Any questions that came up as you're thinking about what's already on your website or on your directory, or what you're planning to write on it?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Regarding the part where you kind of empathize and understand, I'm wondering, Monica, what you recommend when it's a group practice and you're not just coming from one therapist's voice.
Yeah, so again, I think empathizing is key. So it's when you have a group practice, it can be trickier, to figure out who you're talking to. And it's helpful if as a group practice you have a niche, but if you're like more of a general practice, it's kind of like identifying the commonality between all of your different types of clients and empathizing with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess I was kind of curious when you were saying, like, think about why you specialize in what you do and, kind of give a little background on that. I'm just wondering how you would suggest doing that when you're talking about people with various backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that can really, you can really hone in on that on like a about page for your group practice. So like if the clinician has like a bio or something like that, where they can share more about, what brings them to your practice, why they specialize in what they specialize in. That's where they can kind of get really specific about that. But as a group practice, whether you're general or you're more niche, there's probably a reason for that. If you're more general, there's probably a reason you're more general. So like speaking to that. If you're niched, there's probably a reason for that. So speaking to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions as you're all listening to this? Does everybody already have a website? Or do you want to raise your hand if you already have one?
Yay.
So yeah, okay. And does everyone already have like a therapy directory listing, or raise your hand if you? No. Okay, so we've got, yeah, maybe about half that are already up and running and then half that are still developing. I mean, even when you're up and running, you're always developing, to be honest. So with those of you who already have a website, what made you sign up for today in thinking of your website? Like, what are the questions that you have now that you've already written it?
I'm realizing that mine is still very generic and not niche down enough. And so I want to, I guess, completely rewrite it. I'm also struggling with like, I focus on like anxiety and emotion dysregulation with young adults. But I'm also wanting to start a grief support group, and those feel like different. So I'm trying to figure out how to make that flow on one website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that a lot actually. And the solution there is, making two different service pages. So, making one for your young adults and one for grief, and really speaking to each person on each of those different pages. Your grief page is for your grief clients. Your other page is for the other clients. So, and that's what I would say there. And then again, there's probably some commonality that you can find for like your homepage and like trying to speak to both of those groups. And yeah, so it can be done.
Thank you for that.
I know I signed up today because I really want to like audit my website, that I feel like I wrote a lot really quickly, and now I kind of want to slow down and go back and kind of like I wrote down this checklist of like, okay, am I following this? Does each page like check these boxes? So that's very helpful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That I think a lot of people, want to get it done, which is good, and start bringing people in and then go back and reflect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's always, it's normal to just continually refine over time. Not all the time, like every month or anything like that, but like definitely it's worth revisiting a few times a year to make sure your copy is still making sense and doing what you want it to do. So yeah, that's awesome.
Fresh.
I do have a question actually about the part about like sharing like why you're niching in this direction. I don't know if you have any examples of ways of talking about that without oversharing and disclosing too much. Like, I don't think the internet needs to hear about all of my bad relationships from my past that led me to my niche, but would you recommend like a sort of like a boundaried way of like from personal experience, or I guess just like some examples of like language around that?
Yeah, I mean, I love that phrase, from personal experience, and you don't have to go all into it and lay out your whole history there. But I always, I think about, connecting to your mission or your vision, like that can be part of that why description as well, connecting to the transformations that you see your clients go through when they are implementing what you're teaching them, what you're working on. That can be related to your own personal experience too. I know I'm speaking like vaguely, but that's kind of what I think about. If you don't want to share much at all about your personal connection to it, there's a reason you're passionate about this work, and just kind of describing that passion. What makes you light up during session, like what keeps you coming back every day, what do you love to see in your client work, things like that. That can really go a long way too.
I love that idea of describing your passion. And Amalia, I was thinking too, your tagline in my mind is the breakup therapist. So even if you just shared, like, I've had a few bad breakups, I think even just like that is enough. Like, I think we all understand very clearly what comes with a bad breakup. So you don't have to share like a lot more than just like, yeah, I've had those too.
Absolutely. I love that.
Good question.
Thank you.
For those of you who haven't written yet, what would you say from what Monica shared is like the most pertinent thing that you're kind of going to mull over as you start doing rough drafts? Or maybe even the most intimidating part? I think one thing I hear a lot is that, and we'll do a little workshop around this towards the end of this, is that transformation piece. Because when people are starting a business, like that's super intimidating and it brings up all kinds of imposter syndrome. And one of the things people are like, is like, I don't know what transformation people get. Maybe I'm not even a great therapist. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And then like, that's, you know, then it starts to spiral because you're so overwhelmed with like all the discomfort of everything new you're doing. And that's the one I hear a lot is like, what, I don't know what transformation they're getting. Even though like, if you sat down and did case consultations, you'd be like, this is really obvious, but like the emotional piece of it is challenging. So I'm curious what you do with that, Monica.
What was that?
I'm curious what you do with that when people are like, I can't figure out the transformation my clients get.
Yeah, I know. I think as you were talking, I was like, yep, I've had that experience too. You know, the beginning of my business journey being like, I don't know. I think, you know, that one's tough, but I think you can give it some time. You know, I think some of it is that confidence building piece of like seeing your clients go through a transformation and really just finding words for it in that way. But yeah, I mean, you can talk about like what you hope people get out of it too, you know, and what your intention is and things like that. So that might be a good place to start if you're really wondering.
Yeah, so kind of look at it from different angles.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to say, oh yeah.
All right. Monica, when I was working on that piece, because I've been working on a rough draft for a while, because I'm a pretty careful writer, what helped me there was thinking back about when some of the people who I've worked with, when I've closed with them, kind of what they shared with me about what was most helpful or transformational. So that was something that kind of helped me get through that, because it kind of helped, it got my ego or my own stuff out of the way. And, you know, I've been practicing therapy for a long time. It was just kind of like, really, am I making a difference? And I was like, of course you are. You just have to remember what people tell you when they say goodbye. And that was something that was helpful for me.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that too. So I wanted to say briefly, Monica she creates really, I'm speaking for you, Monica, so you can share as well, but I found your work because you create such beautiful websites and have really great design. And so if you're making a website and you don't love design or you don't feel strong in that area, you can purchase a template for it. And then you fill in your own content, or you can even purchase like a copy template. I know Ashley actually bought one of Monica's templates. Yeah. So if that's your thing, it's in general, it's going to cost you way less just to purchase the template versus spend like hours and hours building a website and then not enjoying it. So I want you to know that you can find Monica's work. I think it's holdspacecreative.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I follow you on Instagram. That's how I found you. And so you share some fun reels and like tutorials and also share your work there. And I love it. So feel free to connect with Monica. Anything else you wanted to share about your work, Monica?
Well, like you mentioned, I have some copy templates available if you're really struggling with this copywriting piece. I have templates for about pages, home pages and service pages where I kind of lay out the structure, but I also pair them with workbooks to help you formulate your copy. And I'm just, I go through and I ask you questions to get you thinking about what you need to write and putting yourself in your ideal client's shoes. So so that's a resource that's available also on my website if you're interested.
Yeah. And for my business is mostly a lot of business consultation, like one-on-one sessions. And then I also run an 8-week program, which some of you here have done, where you set up your entire practice during those 8 weeks. And in January, I'm going to start offering Monica's templates with that program. So I'm super excited to have that. Okay, so this is where we pause in the middle for a donation. As I mentioned before, Monica generally charges for this time and for sharing her expertise, but she's donating her time in lieu of the Trevor Project and all of us donating to that. What we normally do is donate directly to the website, but tomorrow Facebook is matching donations 100%. So what I'm going to ask you to do instead is to send it to my business Venmo. You can trust me, and I'll follow up with an email. And my Lloyd Collective always matches 100% as well. So if you send it to my Venmo tomorrow at probably 8 a.m. because they're opening donations at 5 a.m. and matching up to a certain number. So if you send it to my business Venmo tomorrow, I'll be donating all of it to the Trevor Project. So your donation will actually be tripled. Does that make sense? I might have confused myself sharing all of that, but hopefully it makes sense.
So if we send it to you rather than donating directly to Trevor tomorrow through Facebook, because I'm a regular Trevor donor, it would go that would go through you, and then the tax write-off would go to you. So you would, yeah, you
could do it directly too if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, you can totally do that. If you do that, just let me know the amount,
sure,
so that I can mark it on my end.
Yeah, and I have no problem with you taking the write-off. I'm just trying to make my taxes make sense.
Yeah. Any questions about that? So part of the reason I do these monthly workshops is this concept of wealth redistribution and this knowledge that many of us, I guess I should speak for myself, I've been given a lot of privilege, and it's an honor and like a skill to be able to earn money. And so my sense is that if I can, then I'm going to do it and then redistribute it to other areas that need it a lot more. Monica, do you want to share for just a minute, and then I'll let you go if you need to go, on why you chose the Trevor Project for this month?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite organizations to give to. I just think they do really great work for LGBTQIA kids. And I know, personally have, they've helped friends of mine, family members, and, quite literally saved people's lives that I know. So just, I try to find every opportunity I can to support them.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so Monica, I think you're heading out now, unless you want to stay, but I'm going to take some of the concepts Monica shared and workshop them with you just for our last little bit here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Monica, for joining.
Bye-bye.
So what I wanted to do, and you can sit and observe or you can participate, but what I wanted to do for this last little bit is take those two concepts. Monica had that whole slide of like, do this and then this and then this on your homepage. And the areas I see people struggle with the most are the problem and the solution. So I thought it'd be nice to have us all kind of brainstorm what the problem is and what the solution is that you're providing. And then whoever wants to share that out loud, we can look at that and refine it. So if you want to take just a minute and write the problem that your client, your main client, ideal client, is facing, and just put it in like 2 sentences. And you're going to avoid any jargon. Obviously, I know you all know this, but like you're not writing like I'm having symptoms of anxiety and So what are they telling their friends is the problem? What is their mom reflecting back to them is the problem? Like kind of think as much as you can how it is in their head. So just take a minute to write that. And then let's take a minute to write the solution. So we already know that you believe, because you're a therapist, you believe therapy is the solution. So you don't have to spell that out. But what is, what's the transformation that your client's going to get as a result of working with you? And if you don't know, you could think of the modality you're using and the transformation that they assert that clients get from it. You could think of what Rebecca said, what clients tell you when they say goodbye, which I think is such a beautiful way to think of it. You could think of the ideal outcome that they get. If you're not sure, just let me know and we'll come up with some ideas. All right, and I know you could probably write on this, you could probably just take a whole blank piece of paper and write many, many ideas and then refine it from there. So we're just scratching the surface here, but who would be up for sharing this? And then maybe up for some questions around it. Ashley, you're up for it?
Okay, so what I wrote was for my ideal client, I can't make and keep connections with others anymore, and I'm angry and easily frustrated all the time.
I love that, make and keep connections with others. I haven't heard that before.
My niche is veterans, so.
Niche is veterans?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the main problem they're having is disrupted relationships and their emotions feeling.
Yeah, that transition going from the military community and transitioning into the civilian world, connecting with others that haven't served is a huge one.
Oh, so the connections are specifically with
others who haven't served.
Okay. So
Maybe
I wonder if you
burn that and put that in there.
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
Because it's very much related to that transition to civilian life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Versus like somebody who's like, I've never figured out relationship skills, or ever since my bad breakup, I don't want to talk to anybody. Then you send them to Malia. Yeah. And then what's the solution that they're going to get as a result of working with you? Or the outcome?
The opposite of that, hopefully. But how do I word that? Describe, I guess, how I help. Yeah, this is where I have a hard time not having the clinical jargon speak. Would be like, so the solution would be gaining skills to, I guess, reintegrate in your community, and yeah, I'm gaining those skills. I'm like, how do I not sound like a therapist? This is really
actually, I like your idea of just saying the exact opposite.
Okay.
I wrote down transition to civilian life smoothly, stay connected to people, and feel emotionally under control. Although I don't always love the concept of like emotions being under control, but like feel like emotionally balanced or stable.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts as you're all listening to this of like what you can imagine a veteran getting based on what Ashley described so far?
Ashley, we should probably do our own little workshop. I'm transitioning out of a long career at the VA, and I'm continuing to serve veterans. So similar work, so very similar. So I don't want to turn this into a veteran only workshop, but when I've been working on this, some of the stuff I've been using is feeling more confident and calm. And I'm going to be using that on my website, but it's fine if people see it in more than one place. We'll probably refer people to each other. But yeah, I mean, that's mostly is about feeling more confident and calm and able to make good decisions. And that's something that I feel like when people separate because they've been told what to do for, between 2 and 35 years, there's this learned helplessness that can happen. And they're not as confident in making their own decisions so that things can be made really rationally, or they want to tell everybody what to do all the time because that's what they've been doing. So there's a sweet spot in between those two. So yeah.
Okay, awesome.
That's really nice. So you said feel calm and confident in their decision making?
Yeah, I said feel more confident, calm, and able to make good decisions.
Oh, and able to make good decisions.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I'm going to be using that language, but again, I don't really care. I mean, so somebody sees one of our websites and they say, okay, who has an opening first? It's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, you should connect. And Ashley is a veteran, so
thank
there's
you.
a lot of wisdom there. Yeah, that makes sense.
My email address.
Oh yeah, I'll put my email in here in the chat for sure.
I think what's oh yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
I was just thinking instead of like controlling emotions, the word like managing emotions.
Which I feel like that would appeal to a veteran, being able to manage. I think what's interesting too with that outcome, Rebecca, is that decision making is one of the biggest challenges of that transition. I'm guessing, right? So touching on that makes a lot of sense. All right, who else would like to share?
I'll share.
Great.
So I tend to work mostly with anxiety. So for the problem from the client's side, I said, I'm lost in my head all the time, overthinking. People think I'm crazy, so I can't talk to my friends about what's worrying me. I'm totally stuck. And then solution, I was thinking about, how people kind of leave therapy. And I learned how to think about my thinking so I'm not stuck anymore. I still have worries, but they don't overtake me.
So lost in their head, can't tell their friends, so they feel isolated, and then feeling crazy. And then the solution is I like the thinking about their thinking, like I can see it. I still have the worries, but they're not overwhelming me. Like I can do other things. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. Any thoughts as you're all listening to that and thinking about clients with anxiety and what they're coming with?
I think about some of the physical symptoms of anxiety that people might not put together with like you're sweaty or your stomach feels weird or trouble sleeping or things like that people might be like I could see someone reading that website and be like, oh, like I experienced this. I didn't know that maybe that could be connected to anxiety.
That's really true. Yeah, thank you. I took notes.
That's nice too, because then even if they don't work with you, at least they figured out a little bit more of like what the heck is going on. Like, why is my stomach always hurting? Or why can't I ever sleep? Yeah. And Julia, I would guess that for your clients, that feeling of realizing like, hey, the problem, like the worrying doesn't have to go away. I just know how to like shrink it down to size. That's like a huge thing for them to walk away with.
Yeah, I think it's more realistic than try to promise they're never gonna feel anxious again.
Yeah, or just like you'll just get rid of it altogether.
Yeah.
So you're also it's interesting too, in that copy, you're also setting up their expectations right from the beginning. That's what's interesting with all of these like solutions, is you're setting up the expectations in the beginning of here's what you're most likely to reach. So people can give like better informed consent. Yeah, that's nice. Let's do one more and then we'll finish up.
I can share.
Great.
So the problem, someone who's feeling very sad about feeling badly about themselves in dating or intimate relationships. And solution is a little bit less concise. I was just like writing a lot of things about a solution is really to help them understand why they feel so bad about themselves, and this idea that you really don't have a fighting chance at feeling better about yourself until you first understand where this is coming from, and kind of like inserting a lot of compassion and rethinking into their past so that they can move forward.
So they're feeling sad and they're feeling bad about themselves in relation to romantic relationships. That's your specific area. And then the solution is understanding why they feel bad so that they can work through it or move through it. Did I miss part of the solution?
No, that was pretty well said. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that people are coming to you because they feel bad, but they can't quite put words to it.
Yeah, I have a lot of clients who like there are behaviors that are maybe feeling out of control, like they might be having an affair with someone, they might be like struggling to even get started on dating, they might be experiencing like what I would call like a lot of like anxious attachment stuff, a lot of like clinginess, a lot of anxiety about not getting texts back, a lot of that, but or just feeling like kind of consumed by that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So they're doing things that don't even make sense to themselves.
Yes.
And those things don't feel good, but they don't know like where to start or what even those things are.
Yes. So my person is the person who doesn't really just want like coping skills, because they are like the people who have already researched that and are I'm doing the deep breathing, I'm doing yoga, like why am I still cheating on my partner or something like that.
I love that. That's it. Even what you just said could be a really cool like problem that you list. Like, I'm doing the deep breathing, I'm doing the yoga. Why am I still feeling so clingy? Like why am I dying when they haven't texted back within an hour? Or why am I still cheating? Like that, to me, that really captures it. And then the solution is that you're kind of helping them dig up whatever's there and look at it and work through it.
Yes.
So it's for people who really want to do like deeper work in some ways of like understanding their history, understanding themselves, so that they can have relationships that they want, even if just a relationship with themselves.
Yes.
Sounds like great work. Any thoughts or questions on Amalia's before we wrap up here? I think with all of these, if you can all find somebody to reflect, like to share these with, and then get their reflection, get their questions, have them say it back to you in different words, it helps clarify and refine it a lot. Other people, what they do for websites is they have someone interview them, and you could pay someone to do it, or you could just have a friend do it and you record it. And then you take all that and transcribe it to your website. Some of us think through writing, others think through talking. So kind of figuring out what works for you and then putting it up there.
If you were to have someone interview you, like what kind of questions would you have them ask you?
I mean, you could take some of those slides from, and I'll see if Monica will share those with us. You could take some of those and just like turn them all into questions. But some of the main ones would be like, what's the problem your client faces? Or what are your clients telling you about what sucks right now? Or like, I'm going to go back to Rebecca's question. Like, when your clients say goodbye, what are they saying that they really needed or cared about? Or what do you want them to say when they say goodbye? Like, what would you love to hear from them that like they got from working together?
Great.
Yeah. All right, that's it for this month. Next month, I'm super excited. We're going to do a repeat of what we did a year ago with my friend Andrea Rideau. We're going to be talking about money. And Andrea and I are going to talk about what we learned about money and private practice over the last year. So we did a money workshop last December, and we're going to repeat it. And she and I have both made good mistakes and things that we've learned from. So it'll be fun. And I'll share that in my newsletter, which I think you all received. But I think we donated over, over 350 or so to the Trevor Project. And if you haven't donated yet, you're still welcome to send it to me. If you donate separately, just email me so I can include it in our total. But thanks so much for coming, everyone, for taking an hour out of your busy day and connecting with each other and doing this fun workshop. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Ariana, thank you for your generosity in putting these together. It's real, they're invaluable, and it's very much appreciated.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Bye.